sure you already know that most people follow the exact same routine every day. I do it. You probably do too. Same route, same timings, same steps. It makes life feel safe, predictable. But here's the thing. Patterns don't just make you feel safe. They make it easier for someone or something to follow you. And by the time you've noticed, it's already too late. Hey, welcome to ASMRk. I hope you're doing good. I'm going to be reading some scary Reddit stories for you today, focusing mainly on creepy encounters, from the paranormal to sinister experiences with what some of these Reddit users thought to be human. Let's get straight into it. This happened last year, and I don't know how to explain it in a way that doesn't sound stupid. It's not dramatic, no one died, no one got hurt, but it's been chewing at the edges of my brain every single day since. I live in a small 3-story building just outside Portland, built in the 1940s, one of those old brick walk-ups with creaky stairs and paper-thin walls. My apartment's on the 2nd floor, and until recently, the unit above mine had been vacant for years. I only know this because my landlord, Terry, told me when I moved in. Top 1 sealed up, he said. Pipes are shut, needs full gutting. Been empty since before I got the place. You won't hear a peep. He was wrong about the last part. I moved in mid-January. It was freezing and the heat barely worked, so I layered up and camped out on my mattress with a space heater and Netflix on my phone. Around 3 a.m, I heard footsteps overhead. Not just creaks or shifts in the wood. Footsteps. I paused my phone, thinking maybe it was coming from the hallway. Nope, definitely above me. I could even hear the weight shift with each step. They went on for maybe 3 minutes, then stopped. I told myself it was the pipes. Old building. Could be anything. I didn't sleep well at all. The next day, I casually brought it up with Terry when he stopped by to drop off some paperwork. Hey, are you sure nobody lives upstairs? He looked genuinely confused. Yeah, it's sealed up. No power, no heat. No one's touched it in years. I mentioned the footsteps. Probably the building's settling, he said. Or raccoons. Sometimes they get into the walls. But I heard footsteps on the floor above me. 2 distinct pairs actually. One heavier than the other. I didn't mention that. Over the next week, it kept happening. Not every night, just enough to keep me anxious. Sometimes it was footsteps. Sometimes it sounded like someone dragging something across the floor. Once, I swear I heard what sounded like a chair tipping over. But again, Terry swore there wasn't even any furniture up there. At one point, I even climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor out of pure frustration. I figured maybe someone was squatting, but the door was padlocked, solid. I banged on it once, just to see if I'd hear anything. Nothing. I went back down, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been listening on the other side. This part's harder to talk about. A few weeks later, I started hearing a voice. Just one at first, muffled, like someone trying to speak through a pillow. It happened late at night while I was half asleep. It said something I couldn't make out, then stopped. No rhythm, no repetition, just one statement. I sat up and listened, but it didn't come back. Then a few nights later, it happened again. Clearer this time. A woman's voice, into the living room that night. I downloaded one of those sleep apps that record sounds overnight. The first night I got nothing but a few creaks. The second night it picked up something. At 2:47 AM there was a whisper, very low. You can barely hear it unless you crank the volume. It doesn't sound angry, just sad. I'm still here. I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't even know what I'd say. I started keeping a flashlight on my nightstand and wore headphones to sleep. The headphones didn't help. Mid-March, I came home to find dust on my kitchen counter. I looked up and saw a hairline crack in the ceiling plaster, a fresh one, running the length of the room. It looked like something had been dragged across the floor above. Terry checked it out later that week and seemed genuinely puzzled. He said the unit above was still locked tight. Probably just weather warping the wood, he offered, or that squirrel problem again. I asked if he'd ever actually been inside the unit upstairs. He hesitated. Once, when I first bought the place, it was just empty rooms, old paint, it smelled like mould. Then he added, some people used to say the lady that lived up there talked to herself a lot, but that was ages ago. It took a while, but I eventually found a name through the property records. Justine Frankson. She lived in the upstairs unit for 30 years, died in 2006. No next of kin, no obituary, just a line in a property sale listing. Owner deceased, sold as is. The creepiest part, a comment on an old neighbourhood forum post from 2019. Anyone remember that woman in the third floor apartment on Rosemount? Used to sit in the window and wave at cars. I think she lived alone. I always wondered if she was okay up there. There were no replies. Last Thursday, I woke up at 2:53 AM to the sound of humming. Soft, almost like a lullaby. Faint and tuneless. It came from directly above me. And then I smelled something. Not rot, not mould. Lilacs. Strong, floral, and completely out of place. My nose burned with it. I started coughing. By the time I turned the lights on and stood up, the smell was gone. The ceiling looked the same. No new cracks, just quiet. There was a knock at my door at 7 AM. I opened it to find a folded piece of paper sitting on the floor. No one in sight. I unfolded it. The handwriting was jagged, like someone wrote with stiff fingers. It just said, "Thank you for listening." I stood there for a while, unsure what to feel. I don't know if she's still up there, or if she's finally gone. But I haven't heard footsteps in 3 nights. I haven't smelled lilacs. And last night, for the first time since I moved in, I actually slept. We live in a quiet cul-de-sac, one of those suburban developments where every driveway has a basketball hoop and people say good morning when they're walking the dogs. We moved in about 4 years ago. It's not a fancy area, but it's decent, safe, or it used to feel that way. I think I need to write this out because I'm starting to second guess everything. I know something happened, I just can't prove it. Not to the police, not even to my wife really. But I know what I saw, and I know the way it made me feel. It started small, just a couple of weeks ago. We don't have blinds in the kitchen. There's a wide window above the sink that looks out onto the backyard. At night, when the lights are on inside, it turns into a mirror. You see your own reflection pretty clearly, but not much else. I was washing dishes after dinner. It was maybe 8:30, cold outside. I'd just finished putting our daughter to bed. My wife was in the living room watching TV, and I was there, just zoning out while scrubbing a pan, when I thought I saw something shift in the window's reflection. Not inside, outside, something behind me, or more accurately, something in the yard, just past the glass. It was fast, barely a flicker, and I remember leaning in, squinting through the glare, trying to make out the yard beyond my own reflection. Nothing, just the patio, the shed, our fence. I figured it was a trick of the light, or maybe a neighbour's motion sensor going off and triggering shadows. I didn't even mention it to my wife. I wish I had. Weird things kept happening. I started noticing footprints, bare footprints on the back patio. Not full ones, but smudges. Almost like someone had been pacing. They were always gone by morning. Sometimes I'd wipe them away and they'd be back the night after. My wife thought maybe a raccoon had stepped in something wet and had been dragging it around. That didn't make any sense, but I didn't push it. Then, on Thursday night, I stayed up late. I'd had a stressful day at work and was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of whiskey, watching a video on my laptop. I had my headphones in and it was almost midnight. I got a feeling, that one where your body picks up something before your brain does. I paused the video, pulled off the headphones, and from the window I heard it, breathing, close, right outside the glass. I didn't move at first, I just sat there, listening. It wasn't wind, it wasn't an animal, it was slow, controlled breathing. I turned my head. He was standing there, inches from the glass, staring in. No mask, no expression, just a man, middle-aged, clean-shaven, average-looking in the most terrifying way possible. He wasn't trying to scare me. He didn't jump or move. He just looked at me, like I was the animal in a cage. I stood up so fast, I knocked the chair over, and he bolted. I ran through the house and through the front door, hoping to catch him going around the side of the yard. But by the time I got outside, he was gone. No footprints, no motion light going off next door. Just the sound of someone's sprinklers kicking on in the distance. I reported it. Of course I did. I even showed them the marks on the patio from earlier in the week. But the officer who came out was polite, in that condescending kind of way. Told me lots of people mistake shadows and reflections for faces. Said the footprints didn't look human to him, more like a possum. I tried to show him the window, tried to explain how real it felt, but he just smiled and handed me a card. Said to call again if I actually caught someone in the act. My wife wasn't home that night. She had taken our daughter to my mum's for the weekend, which is probably for the best. But when she got back, I didn't tell her everything. I just said someone might have tried to break in and that I'd ordered a camera for the backyard. The motion camera I installed was one of those floodlight deals with an app on your phone. It only records when triggered, and it sends notifications instantly. I set it up on Saturday. Sunday night, it caught nothing. But I felt it, that same shift, the same strange quiet, like the night was holding its breath. Monday at 2:42 AM, I got a notification. Motion detected. When I opened the app, there was a glitchy blur of someone ducking beneath the angle of the light. Just a flash of what looked like a coat or a sleeve. Nothing else. But the timestamp, 2:42 AM, made me sick. Because that's the exact time I'd gotten up to be. I walked through the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, right in front of the window, and he had been out there, watching again. This part is where I started to really spiral. I got obsessed with the reflection in the window. At night, with the kitchen light on and everything else off, I started treating it like a mirror. I'd sit on the counter and stare at it, watching for the smallest shift. It took 3 nights. On the 3rd night, I saw it, just over my shoulder in the reflection. A hand on the glass, pale, fingers long enough that they hung just barely off the edges of the frame. And then they slid down, disappearing out of view. I turned around, ran outside. Nothing. But I know what I saw. The hand wasn't touching the glass from my side. It was from his. Tuesday, I checked the shed. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before. It's one of those aluminium kits you bolt together in an afternoon, barely weatherproof, let alone secure. I unlocked it, pulled the doors open, and there were food wrappers inside, candy bar packs, crushed water bottles, and a ripped piece of one of my daughter's drawings. One I thought had blown away weeks ago. He'd been living in there. There was even a sleeping bag pulled up in the corner. It wasn't one of ours. I didn't call the police this time. I just dragged everything out into the yard, poured gasoline on it, and burned it, every last piece. We haven't seen him since that night, but every time I'm in the kitchen, I still check the reflection. I still freeze at the slightest sound. I've replaced the back fence, installed more cameras, even added motion lights to the inside of the shed. But there's one last thing I never told anyone, not even my wife. That final night, after I burned his stuff and came back inside, I found something on the windowsill in the kitchen, a folded piece of paper. It must have been slipped through the tiny crack where the paint doesn't seal perfectly. It was blank, just a single sheet of notebook paper. No words, no drawing, just empty. But the edge smelled faintly of my shampoo. Hey, sorry to interrupt the stories. They will continue shortly. This is just a quick message. If you are enjoying the stories, please do consider subscribing for more. There'll be 2 new videos every week containing scary stories, all whispered. Anyway, let's get back to these stories. This happened 2 years ago. I didn't write about it at the time because I honestly didn't know how. And even now, I'm not sure if this is paranormal or something else entirely. All I know is that it still haunts me in ways I don't fully understand. I work in transportation logistics. Specifically, I manage overnight freight transfers between national depots. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and it keeps me busy. We deal with a lot of third-party drivers, contract workers who come in to haul loads between facilities. That's where this starts, with one driver, a man who, as far as I can tell, does not exist. It was a Thursday night, close to 11 p.m. I was on a loading dock outside Depot 14, halfway through my shift. The night was quiet, cold and clear. You get used to the noise of the forklifts and the diesel rumble of the trailers. That kind of chaos becomes a hum in the background. I just signed off on a shipment when a flatbed rolled into the lot. No company logo, just matte grey with rust on the sides. The kind of truck that looks like it's been through 3 lives already. I wasn't expecting any flatbeds that night. I even double-checked the schedule. driver pulled up slowly, parked at base 6, and hopped out like he knew the routine. He was tall, maybe late 40s, pale, gaunt, with sunken eyes. Not dirty, just worn, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. He wore a navy jacket with no company patch, and his boots looked older than me. He didn't say much, just handed me a clipboard with a delivery manifest and a signature line. The paperwork looked legit. The handwriting was a little shaky, and the ink was faded, but it had our depot listed as the delivery point. Just one crate, no sender name, no routing number. I asked him where he was coming from. He said, "Been on this one a long time." That's all he said. No explanation, no destination code, just a nod toward the back of the flatbed. It was huge, 7 feet tall, made of thick, splintering wood and metal brackets at each corner. No markings except for a stamped number, 08941-W. No arrows, no weight label, nothing. We have procedures. Unmarked freight gets held in a secondary bay until routing can confirm its legitimacy. But something about this guy made me hesitate. I asked him to wait while I radioed dispatch. When I turned back, he was already lowering the liftgate, positioning the crate with a hand jack like he'd done it 1,000 times. I told him we weren't cleared for drop-offs that weren't in the system. He just said, "Won't be long, it'll know where to go." That sentence stuck with me. I almost stopped him, almost made him reload it. But something about the way he stood there, like he wasn't trying to argue, just inform me, made me step back. He slid the crate onto the concrete, tipped his head once, like a goodbye, then climbed into the truck and pulled out slow. No tail lights, no plate. After he left, I went inside and called dispatch again. I read them the manifest number and the crate ID. They had nothing in the system, no record of an inbound delivery, no such routing code, no third party scheduled to arrive that night. I told them I had the crate already offloaded. They asked me who dropped it off. I started describing him, the truck, the jacket, the way he walked, and they cut me off and said, "We don't have any contractors running flatbeds in the region right now." They even checked archived logs. Nothing matched. I asked if maybe it was an older record, someone back on the road after time off. They said no. Every active driver has to update their logbook weekly. This person had no badge, no route history, no name on file. It was like he'd driven in from nowhere. We put it in a holding bay and kept a camera on it overnight. I told the next shift manager to leave it alone until we got confirmation from routing or upper logistics. By the next night, it was gone. No footage of anyone loading it back up, no tyre tracks, no signs it had ever been moved. I checked the security footage myself. The camera feed skips exactly 7 minutes between 3:03 AM and 3:10 AM, the time I'd estimate it disappeared. The crate never left on a truck. It was just no longer there. 3 weeks later, someone from Central came down to interview me. Not law enforcement, internal compliance. They asked me to retell the entire event in detail. Then they asked me to not talk about it with anyone else at the depot. A month after that, I was quietly reassigned to Depot 6. No warning, no request. Just a formal change order with a reallocation allowance and a short memo about internal recognition. I've never seen that driver again. I've tried to research the manifest number 08941-W. Through every system I still have access to. Nothing. I even googled it. One result. post from a shuttered message board, closed in 2006. No images, no comments, just one sentence. If he shows up, don't let him leave the crate. I saved a screenshot, that's all I have. That and the feeling that I should have done something differently that night. I just wish